Hey all, Heretic here. Today in the Battlegrounds, we're going to be talking about Season 8 Naga. New Nagas, old Nagas, everything to do with Nagas, and trinkets for Nagas, because why not? Let's do it all. I think that sounds like fun. I've been off for a couple days. A lot of the videos you've been seeing have been pre-recorded. I'm finally back, and now I get to do some new ones. So let us get into Naga. As always, we're going to be starting with the ones leaving first, because let's see if we're going to be excited, sad. To me, this kind of sets the tempo. Sometimes some of these leave, I don't care. Other times they leave, and I'm like, oh, I really like that one. Let's see where we start with the Naga. First, at Tier 1, the Mini Myrmidon, gone. Now, I don't hate Mini Myrmidon, but I also don't like Mini Myrmidon either, so I'm not going to complain that it's gone. We're also going to be losing Silent Swimmer. Now, Silent Swimmer is an interesting card, right? You don't ever want Silent Swimmer on your board to be on your board. You want that spellcraft, then you really want to sell Silent Swimmer and hopefully just play another one next turn. And typically, it's just to take a key minion on your board and make it invisible. The Silent Swimmer no one really cares about. It's one of those great cards I think about Naga where I think they're good for utility because they give me an ability I shouldn't have and then I just cut the minion. Sadly, Silent Swimmer won't be doing that anymore. But while it's annoying that I can't do it anymore, it's also refreshing because it means my opponents can't anymore either. Now, Corrupted Myrmidon was one of those cards I either loved or I hated. And I believe when Naga first came out, through almost all of it, I loved Corrupted Myrmidon. The idea that I could just buff this thing and it would double the stats. And however I was buffing the board, I can make it bigger and bigger and bigger. But the problem with it is it's just comes so late, you don't typically have a way to directly target it. So unless you're playing a menagerie and say it's your only Naga on the board and then, hey, there we go, perfect. You're then forced to play something horrible like a Naga board that requires you to slowly buff it over time. And it just doesn't really feel good. It's fine when you're playing Quillborn, you can stick 200 blood gems on it, but otherwise, just not that exciting because it's just hard to buff it. So that being said, I will miss Corrupted Myrmidon because there were some fun memories, but I think it's time that we went our separate ways. The Lord of Gains has moved on. Now this is not a surprise to many people, I think. When Lord of Gains initially came out, fantastic card, scaled great, felt good. Now it just feels too slow, and I feel like they need a better way to pull this off. When you get Lord of the Gains, yeah, he does buff other Naga, but you also have to cast a lot of spells. You also have to have other Naga, and then he doesn't buff himself. So really doesn't feel great, the Lord of the Gains. Yeah, when you can get him early and you've got a bunch of spells already going and one Naga at least you want to keep, it's not bad. But typically when you get it, even if you do have other Naga, you don't want to keep any of them. So it's these painful moments where you're like, okay, well, I'm going to cut this one. I don't want anymore, but oh, I'm so weak now. So now you've got a new one. You're scaling that up. But like, oh, you've got your next weak one. You got to cut. And you're like, oh, this hurts, but I'm going to be weak during the next fight, but I need to cut this eventually. It was a lot of decisions like that with Lord of Gains. So I'm not going to miss Lord of the Gains too much. And finally, the Naga that I'm going to feel probably the most painful about losing, because I really love this card, is Silavaz the Vindictive. Now, it's rare I actually play with him on my board, but whenever I see him in the shop, I will often cycle for him and enjoy the benefit of what he does. It was amazing for that cycle point. Very rare I had him on my board. There were nice times where, yeah, you could golden one and you could really just milk that with your menagerie build. But typically, this was a cycle card, but a damn good one. I'm gonna miss it. Now we've got the returning or changed Naga. There's some interesting changes here, folks. So be ready. First, we have Snail Calvary's back. Well, he didn't really leave, he's just changing, but is now a tier 1 3/2. Once per turn when you cast a spell, gain +1/+1. That does feel pretty good, right? Now, obviously the issue with this is typically on turn 1, you're now gonna have no way to activate that +1/+1. He is a tier 1. He doesn't give you a spellcraft, so there's no way typically to make that trigger, which is good. You don't want it to be a 4/3 on turn 1. Now we're reaching stages of things like backstage security that shouldn't really exist that early in the game. So that's good. He's not going to start scaling till turn 2, maybe 3 if you tier up. So I'm kind of okay with this change. And because he's not just scaling health anymore, now he's scaling attack also. That makes him a little more viable than in the past where you could have him be like a 5/30 because you tripled it. but it's just that. It's got 5 attack. Now it's going to be scaling both, so that'll feel a lot better, I think. This is probably a really good balance point. I think this one's going to stick around for a bit in this form. Coming in at tier 3, we have the 2/2 Warden of Old Naga. Spellcraft, gain 1 gold. So you can't sit on a stack of these. It's not just going to give you a coin every turn. It's not a death rattle. This is just every turn you get something that's going to give you 1 gold, but it's spellcraft, so it disappears. So use it. I think this is great. The fact that you can't hold on to a handful of coins, which I love to do, and you should do when able, is something that's easily abused and allows you to tier and take high tier minions you shouldn't be able to take because of these economy cards. I think this is a good balance, that it's still a tier 3. It's a 2/2, which is not a great stat line for a 2/2, but it gives you economy every turn, which is pretty valuable. So overall, kind of solid card, not insane by any stretch, but decent, I think. Let us enjoy the wonder that has been and still will be the Zesty Shaker. Now coming in, still at tier 4, 5/4 stat line, Naga. Once per turn when a spell is played on this, get a new copy of it, folks. Not a spellcraft. I'm going to assume spellcraft also, but spell. Tavern spell? Whatever it is, get a new copy of it. That is huge value, no matter what it is. Even if it's just a little permanent stat buff, you are now going to get an extra copy of that. This card was already phenomenal. I think just got a lot better with a 5/4 stat line. I got no complaints about this thing at tier 4. I always wanted a Zesty Shaker, and especially if I'm thinking of play on Naga, or now if I'm just doing anything with spells, I want this even more. This fits in so many good fun spell menagerie things. This is a phenomenal card. Critter Wrangler's back. Tier 5, 3/5 Naga. Whenever you cast a spell on a minion, give it +2/+2. So regardless of what a spell does, whether it's stats, a divine shield, whatever, it is also going to gain 2/2. Nice solid buff in addition to whatever it normally is. There happens to be Quillbore in your games. You happen to get a couple of blood gems, throw them out there now because the Critter Wrangler, even if they're just a 1/1 buff, now they're essentially a 3/3 buff. Not a bad card. Stats, not insane, but the value you get out of it, pretty damn good, depending on the build you're using, obviously. If you have no spells at all, this is not going to be a useful creature. But if you have any spells, it's starting to look a lot better. And here's an old friend, tier 6, 3/7 Orgazoa the Tender, spellcraft, discover a Naga. I liked Orgazoa, but at the same time, I didn't love him. So I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how I end up feeling about it after I played a few games and get back into it. The spellcraft discover a Naga, of course, nothing wrong with that. Targeted discovery is always good. Just not sure how I feel about this 3/7 neutral. Then again, there's a lot of cards that do things with neutrals now. We'll see. Oh, speaking of old friends, how about tier 6, 6/8 Naga, Tide Mistress Athissa. Whenever you cast a spell, give 4 friendly Naga +1/+1. Believe in buff itself, folks. All you need is this and 3 Naga. Make stats, go nuts. Oh no, our corrupted Myrmidon has already left the building. This would have been perfect to go with it. Damn. I liked Athissa. I'm okay with this. This is better than Lord of the Gains, I feel. Now, of course, it depends what options you have for spells to be casting, but I feel like this is going to be in a very good place relatively quick. Now, that's with the mindset of the previous meta. We'll see what happens after a few games of Trinkets. We lost some old friends. We had the return of some old friends. How about a new friend? And how about exactly 1 new friend? Naga get 1 new card, it looks like. I'm confused why it's only 1, but I guess we don't want to talk about Naga. We don't know. We don't want to talk about Naga. Those are mistakes, right? But we have tier 3, 3/3 Naga, Volcanic Visitor, spellcraft, choose 1. Give your minions +2 attack until next turn, or +2 health until next turn. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I mean, essentially, it's, what, a 5/3 or a 3/5, and all your minions are getting that buff. It's not bad. It's not exciting. I'll have to play some games to see how I actually feel about it. I feel like there's better cards I could buy. Then again, tripling into this early, that's a lot of just health, or if you're playing with other Divine Shield minions, attack. So there's a place for it either way. I'll reserve judgment for now. All right, folks, we've seen all the minions. Now it's time for the trinkets, the lesser trinkets. We're going to start with the ones you get on turn 6. And I have to say, after thinking about the Naga ones quite a bit, I have to say, at least the lesser Naga trinkets are awesome. I love everything about them. You'll see why in a second. For 4 gold, Lore Walker Scroll. Whenever you cast a spell on a minion, give it +2/+2. So regardless of whatever that spell does, this also gives it a permanent +2/+2 buff. Pretty damn good. I like this one a lot. For 3 gold, we have the Replica Cathedral. Your first spell each turn casts twice. So really think about what you're about to cast. Because this doesn't say spellcraft, this says spell. So anything. You pop a gold coin, you're getting 2 of them. But you also play a tier 6 spell, you're getting 2 casts of it. So there's some interesting shenanigans you could pull off here. I'm really looking forward to playing some games with this. This is going to be a lot of fun. Next up for 6 gold, we have the Shaker Portrait. Get a Zesty Shaker. Your Zesty Shakers give an extra copy of the spell. Nothing wrong with this, folks. We already know Zesty's looking incredibly good. How about this? Oh my. For 6 gold, especially if you're already looking at like a deep blue or whatever kind of spells you want to do, this is looking very good. Hell yes. And finally, for 3 gold, Rusty Trident. Start of combat, give your Naga Death Rattle, get a random spellcraft spell is phenomenal. All of your Naga, obviously, if you're offered this, you have at least a couple Naga. If you think you might be just playing a Naga build, why not get a random spellcraft spell from every single Naga that dies? Hell yes. For 3 gold, it's not amazing, but it's pretty damn good, especially if you end up getting a Thissa or something along that kind of lines where you can just buff and buff and buff. This is going to be great. We're done with the lessers. Now it's time to move on for the graders. Now there's not many of these, but what they lack in volume, I think they make up for in quality. So Naga players, get ready. For 2 gold, Lorewalker Scroll. Whenever you cast a spell on a minion, give it +5/+5. That's any spell, folks. Even if your unbuffed blood gems are a 1/1 buff and you're hitting them with this, it is now a 6/6 buff. It's a decent buff. Even at late game, because you're getting this on turn 9 and later, every single spell giving an additional 5/5, significant. This is good. For 4 gold, Glow Scale Portrait. Get a Glow Scale. Your first spellcraft enchantment each turn is permanent. Permanent. How do you like Divine Shields on all your minions? Because if you get this, the first one you cast, if it was Divine Shield every turn, they'd all have permanent Divine Shield. Stats, whatever you're giving them, it's permanent, and that is a big deal. I think this is fantastic. You're getting a top minion that gives you Divine Shield, and then it's allowing all of these to be permanent, potentially the first one every turn is huge. This is great. Don't mess it up when you get this. Do not cast the wrong spell first and make it permanent. You will regret it. And finally, we have for 6 gold, we have Spite Scale Sushi Roll, which is a really weird thing to have in a Naga build, but I guess they like sushi living under the ocean, and this is not implied that they are the sushi. Get a Spite Scale Special. Your spellcraft spells cast twice. Now, obviously, Divine Shield twice is redundant. It doesn't do anything. But your deep blue buffs going off twice, all these spells twice, starts to make the stats add up twice as fast. And if you have other ones that make your spells cast for a bigger buff, now they're getting that twice. And there's just a lot of shenanigans here that can go on that if you synergize the right group together, you can put together a lot. Is it expensive? Yes. Is the result good if you're playing Naga? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, all. That's it. That's Naga. We've got a bunch of stuff returning. We've got some stuff changing. We've got 1 new Naga. We've got just some trinkets, but they're all decent. For the most part, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of filler in the Naga stuff. It's just like, here's some new stuff. Here's some cool shit. Run out and play, kids. There's not a whole lot of filler. We're not sitting here with a plate full of, potatoes. This is just good stuff. If you like Naga, you should like what you're seeing here. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Let me know how you feel Naga are looking. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned things. I hope you had a good time. Catch you later. Bye.